Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a penny, and realizing it could change your life forever. Not someday, not after years of searching. Right now, a single copper-colored coin, the kind most people toss into a jar without looking, could be worth $1 million. And the most shocking part is this: it doesn't look rare at all. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear isn't just a coin story. It's a moment in American history, a quiet mistake, and a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity hiding in plain sight. In 2009, the United States Mint did something it had never done before. To honor Abraham Lincoln's 200th birthday, they redesigned a penny 4 different times in a single year. Each design told a chapter of Lincoln's life: birth and early childhood in Kentucky, formative years in Indiana, professional life in Illinois, and finally, the presidency in Washington. Most people remember seeing them. Some even saved a few, but almost no one looked closely enough. The birth and early childhood years Lincoln penny shows a simple log cabin. It looks humble, ordinary, almost boring, and that's exactly why it slipped through millions of hands unnoticed. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever gone through a stressful time, paid for coffee, gas, groceries, and never once checked your change? Of course you have. We all have. That's how these coins escaped. In early 2009, the mint was under pressure. Enormous demand, tight deadlines, multiple designs, different metal compositions, different facilities striking coins around the clock. When that happens, errors happen, and sometimes very big ones. Collectors later began noticing something strange: a small number of 2009 birth and early childhood pennies with no mint mark showed characteristics that didn't match normal circulation coins. Subtle differences, weight anomalies, metal inconsistencies, die variations so rare that most collectors wouldn't recognize them unless they knew exactly what to look for. And when one of these coins surfaced in private collector circles, the reaction was disbelief. Because this wasn't just rare. It was potentially worth $1 million. Pause for a second and think about that. A penny you could find in a drawer, a jar, or an old wallet. A broken bar worth more than most houses. Now here's an important reset. Take a breath, because this is the part where people usually stop listening. Don't. This is where you learn how to spot it. First, you need the year. 2009. No other year matters for this specific coin. Second, the design. It must be the birth and early childhood reverse, the log cabin with the simple roof and a door. Not the later designs, not the Lincoln Memorial, just the cabin. Third, the mint mark, or more accurately, the lack of one. There must be no mint mark under the date. That means it was struck in Philadelphia. So far, that sounds easy, and that's why millions of people assume they already know what they have. But this is where the story turns. Most 2009 pennies were made of zinc with a thin copper coating. But during the transition periods at the mint, leftover plan case from different compositions were still present. That created the perfect storm for wrong metal strikes. Some of the most valuable examples are believed to have been struck on experimental or transitional plan case. That changes everything. Take a scale, a precise digital scale. A normal 2009 zinc penny weighs about 2.5 grams. If your coin weighs closer to 3.1 grams, your heart should start beating faster. That extra weight could mean a bronze composition that was never meant for circulation in 2009. Next, look at the color. Zinc pennies often have a dull, grayish tone under the copper plating. A true bronze coin has a warmer, richer color. It looks alive, almost glowing. Now tilt the coin under a light. Slowly, watch the surfaces. High-value examples often show unusually sharp details, crisp lines on the log cabin, clean edges, strong lettering. This isn't wear, it's precision. Another reset here, because this matters. Most people miss this part. Check the edge. Zinc pennies often show bubbling, flaking, or corrosion over time. Bronze doesn't behave the same way. If your coin looks solid, smooth, and stable after years in storage, that's a sign. Collectors who've handled one of these coins describe a strange feeling, a sense that something is different before they even know why. Heavier, warmer, more substantial. Now let's talk about value. because this is where the dream becomes real. A confirmed 2009 birth and early childhood Lincoln penny with the right characteristics, the right metal composition, and the right strike can command prices that seem unreal. We're talking about auctions where the room goes silent, where seasoned collectors lean forward, where six figures isn't enough. Under the right circumstances, with professional grading and authentication, this coin has been whispered about in the same breath as million-dollar rarities. Think about that phrase, $1 million, from a penny. And here's the emotional part that hits hard. Most of these coins weren't found by professional treasure hunters. They were found by ordinary people, retirees cleaning out drawers, families sorting through inherited change, someone bored on a Sunday afternoon who decided to look closer instead of scrolling on their phone. That could be you. Another reset, if you're still listening, you're ahead of almost everyone else. Now let me warn you about something important. The internet is full of misinformation. Not every 2009 penny is valuable. Not even close. Condition matters. Metal matters. Weight matters. Authentication matters. If you think you have one, do not clean it. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Put it in a protective holder, handle it by the edges, and get it weighed properly. If it passes the weight test and visual inspection, the next step is professional grading, PCGS or NGC. These are the names that open doors. Without that, it's just a story. With it, it becomes history. Imagine the moment you open that grading package, your hands shaking, your mind racing, and then you see it, confirmation. That's when everything changes. People laugh at pennies. They leave them on the ground. They say they're worthless, and yet, time and time again, it's the smallest coins that carry the biggest surprises. Abraham Lincoln himself came from nothing, a log cabin, a humble beginning, and that's exactly what this coin represents. A reminder that greatness and value often start where no one is looking. And maybe that's why this penny feels different. It's not flashy. It doesn't demand attention. It waits. Right now, somewhere in America, this exact coin is sitting unnoticed, in a jar, in a drawer, in a box marked junk. It's waiting for someone who knows what to look for. Someone like you, because there is a 2017 mint mark Lincoln penny that has stunned collectors, whispered about in back rooms of coin shows, and quietly chased for years. And if you've ever dumped loose change into a jar without looking twice, this story might make your heart pound a little harder. Picture this for a moment. It's late evening. You're at the kitchen table, bills spread out, coffee going cold. You absent-mindedly spill a handful of coins onto the table. Pennies scatter everywhere. You don't think much of it, but one of those pennies could be hiding a value so shocking it feels unreal. A value that has crossed into the territory of $1 million. Not because it's old, not because it's gold, but because of a tiny detail almost everyone misses. The 2017 Lincoln penny feels ordinary. That's what makes it dangerous. It blends in. Abraham Lincoln's familiar face stares back, calm and confident, just like billions of other pennies. The date reads 2017. Under the date, a small letter P, the Philadelphia mint mark. Most people stop there. They toss it aside. Collectors who know better feel a chill, because that's where the mystery begins. Back in 2017, the U.S. Mint was producing pennies at an industrial pace. Millions upon millions rolled off the presses. But when production moves fast, mistakes happen. Tiny mistakes, almost invisible mistakes, and sometimes, those mistakes slip through unnoticed, released into circulation like sleeping giants. One former mint employee once said that the most valuable coins are not the ones locked away in vaults, but the ones that escaped before anyone realized what went wrong. That's exactly what happened here. Somewhere in the production process, a handful of 2017 Lincoln pennies were struck under conditions that should never have happened. Wrong pressure, wrong alignment, wrong plan kit preparation. The kind of errors that turn pocket change into legend. Now imagine being the first person to notice. One collector described the moment as a sinking feeling in the chest, followed by disbelief. He had seen thousands of pennies, but this one felt different. The color wasn't quite right, the strike looked sharper in places and strangely distorted in others. Under magnification, the details told a story no normal penny could. Let's slow down and talk about how you can spot it. because this isn't guesswork. You don't need expensive equipment. You need patience and attention. First, look at the mint mark. It must be a clear P under the date. No mint mark means it's not the one. Denver pennies are out. San Francisco proofs are out. Philadelphia only. Next, study Lincoln's face. On the rare high-value examples, you may notice doubling in the inscriptions. Look closely at the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." Not blurry where. True doubling. Under a magnifying glass, the letters may appear slightly split or shadowed, like an echo. This is not damage. This is a double die effect, and it's one of the biggest red flags of something extraordinary. Now tilt the coin under light. Watch how the surface reacts. Some of the most valuable 2017 pennies show an unusual reflective quality mixed with microscopic flow lines. These lines tell experts that the die was under extreme stress. That stress created a strike so sharp in some areas that Lincoln's coat lines look almost sculpted, while other areas seem off, shifted, or compressed. Pay attention to the rim. This part is overlooked by almost everyone. On certain specimens, the rim may appear slightly uneven or thicker on one side. That imbalance suggests an off-center or misaligned strike, subtle enough to pass inspection, dramatic enough to send collectors into bidding wars. Then there's the weight. A normal 2017 penny weighs about 2.5 grams. Some of the legendary examples were struck on plan case with abnormal composition or thickness. Even a fraction of a gram off can mean everything. A small digital scale can reveal what the naked eye cannot. Now here's where the story turns emotional. One man found his coin in a coffee can that had sat in his garage for years. He wasn't a professional collector. He was just someone who never liked throwing change away. When he finally brought that penny to a dealer, he was laughed at. Then the dealer looked closer. Then the room got quiet. Within months, that penny was authenticated, graded, and whispered about across the collector world. When offers came in, they didn't start in the thousands. They didn't stop at six figures. They climbed into the realm of $1 million. Because coins like this are proof that history still leaks into the present. Because they represent a perfect storm of rarity, condition, and error that cannot be reproduced. Once collectors confirm how few exist, demand explodes. And when demand meets near zero supply, the numbers become unbelievable. Think about how many pennies you've handled since 2017. Thousands, tens of thousands. How many did you actually inspect? Probably none. That's why these coins remain hidden. That's why the story keeps repeating itself. Someone, somewhere, unknowingly spends a coin that could pay off a house, fund retirement, or change a family's future forever. Every couple of years, a new discovery resets the market. A new example surfaces, authenticated and graded at the highest levels. When that happens, headlines whisper about $1 million again. Collectors scramble, prices adjust, and suddenly, everyone starts checking their change. Here's the most important part. Condition matters. A worn, damaged coin won't reach life-changing value. The highest prices come from pennies that look almost untouched. Crisp details, minimal scratches, strong luster. That's why you should never clean a coin. Cleaning destroys value instantly. If you think you have something special, protect it. Store it safely. Get it evaluated by a reputable grading service. The beauty of this hunt is that it costs nothing. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need insider access. You just need curiosity and the willingness to look twice at what everyone else ignores. Every collector who's ever struck gold started with doubt. They assumed lightning wouldn't strike them, until it did. So the next time you hear a penny hit the table, pause, look at the date, look for that P mint mark, tilt it under the light, study Lincoln's face, because history has a habit of hiding in the smallest places.
A simple 2006 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right eyes to finally notice it. Most people would laugh at that idea. I did too, the first time I heard the story. A penny is a penny, right? You toss it into a jar, drop it in a cup holder, maybe leave it on a counter like it doesn't even matter. But this story begins the same way many life-changing discoveries do, with someone who almost didn't look. Back in the mid-2000s, the US Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents. They were everywhere. Gas stations, grocery stores, laundry rooms. And in Philadelphia, pennies were struck without a mint mark, just like they had been for decades. Nothing unusual on the surface. Nothing flashy. That's what made this coin so dangerous to overlook. Among those ordinary 2006 pennies, a tiny number were born different. Not different in a way you'd notice at first glance. Different in a way that hides in the metal itself. Different in a way that only reveals itself if you slow down, breathe, and really look. One collector told a story about sitting at his kitchen table late at night, sorting loose change after a long workday. He wasn't hunting treasure. He was just killing time. His eyes were tired. His hands were on autopilot. Then one penny stopped him cold. It didn't feel right. The color was slightly off. The details looked just a little too sharp in some places and strangely soft in others. That moment, that pause, is where fortunes begin. Now let me reset your attention for a second, because this is important. The value isn't just about the date. It's about the combination of features that almost nobody checks. The 2006 no mint mark Lincoln cent you're looking for must be from Philadelphia. That means under the date, there is no D and no S. Just the year 2006. That alone does not make it valuable. Millions were made. What matters is what went wrong. First, look at Lincoln's portrait. On the ultra-valuable examples, you may see doubling in places that shouldn't be doubled. Check the date. Look closely at the numbers, especially the 2 and the 6. Use a magnifying glass. True doubling looks like a shadow that was struck into the metal, not a blurry smear from damage. Then check the word Liberty. On rare double die varieties, the letters may appear slightly split or thickened, as if the coin tried to speak twice at once. Pause again. Breathe. Because this next part is where most people miss it. Flip the coin over. Look at the Lincoln Memorial. On some legendary examples, the columns show unusual thickness or distortion. The steps may look uneven. The letters in United States of America might show subtle doubling, especially on the outer edges. This isn't something you see from across the room. This is something you see when you care enough to look. Another attention reset, because this part changes everything. Some of the most valuable 2006 no mint mark pennies are believed to have been struck on the wrong planchet. That means the blank metal disc wasn't meant for a Lincoln cent at all. It could be thinner, slightly heavier, or made of a different alloy. To the untrained eye, it's just a penny. To a collector, it's a mistake worth more than most houses. Hold the coin between your fingers. Does it feel lighter than normal? Heavier? Does the color lean more coppery or more silvery than it should? A standard 2006 penny should be copper-plated zinc. If yours doesn't match that expectation, your heart should start beating faster. Collectors have reported examples with unusual surfaces, almost satin-like, smoother than circulation strikes. Others show weak strikes in some areas and razor-sharp details in others. These inconsistencies are fingerprints of mint errors, the kind that turn pocket change into headlines. Now let me tell you why the number $1.8 million keeps coming up in whispers that in private sales. Error coins of extreme rarity don't always make the news. They trade quietly, collector to collector, behind closed doors. When a unique or nearly unique error surfaces, the price isn't set by a guidebook. It's set by desire. By competition. By two people who both know they may never see another one again. That's how a penny becomes worth $1 million. Not because it's old. Not because it's shiny. But because it shouldn't exist. Another reset, because I want you to imagine this clearly. Picture a drawer in your house. The one with random stuff in it. Batteries. Old keys. Loose change. That drawer has been ignored for years. Inside it could be a 2006 no mint mark Lincoln cent with a rare double die, wrong metal composition, or strike anomaly that escaped the mint unnoticed. It survived circulation. It survived time. It survived being spent, dropped, and forgotten. And now it's waiting. People love to say, if it were worth that much, someone would have found it already. That's what they said about other coins too. Until someone did. Until a normal day turned into a story told for the rest of their life. Here's how you check, step by step, without guessing. Use good lighting. Natural light if possible. Use at least a 10x magnifying glass. Verify the date is 2006 and confirm there is no mint mark under the date. Examine the obverse for doubling on the date, Liberty, and in God we trust. Turn it over and inspect the memorial and lettering. Weigh the coin if you can. A scale that reads to 2 decimal places is ideal. Compare it to a normal 2006 penny. Differences matter. If something feels off, don't clean it. Don't polish it. Cleaning can destroy value instantly. Place it in a protective holder and consider professional authentication. That's how ordinary people step into extraordinary moments, and let's be honest for a second. Even if you never find the one worth $1.8 million, the act of looking changes how you see the world. Suddenly, everyday objects aren't invisible anymore. Possibility sneaks back into your routine. Hope hides in your pocket, but if you do find it, if you're the one who notices what others ignored, that's when the phrase $1 million stops being a dream and starts being a decision. History has a strange habit of rewarding the patient. The curious. The ones willing to slow down for a moment longer than everyone else. A simple brown Lincoln wheat penny. The kind most people toss back into a drawer without a second thought. Tonight, I want you to slow down, lean in, and really listen, because this story has changed lives, and it might change yours. In the mid-1950s, America was rebuilding, dreaming big, and spending small change without hesitation. Gas was cheap, coffee was a dime, and pennies flowed through hands like water. In 1954, the Denver Mint struck millions of Lincoln wheat cents, each one stamped with that tiny D beneath the date. Nobody paid attention back then. Nobody imagined that one mistake, one microscopic detail, could turn an ordinary cent into a legend whispered about at coin shows decades later. Here's the chilling part. The most valuable coins in American history didn't start as treasures. They started as accidents. Quiet errors that slipped through busy mint floors, passed unnoticed through grocery stores, lunch counters, and gas stations. And the 1954 D wheat penny sits right in that shadowy space between ordinary and extraordinary. Collectors today still talk about the first time one surfaced. A man sorting through his late father's coffee can of pennies. Nothing fancy. Just copper coins collected over a lifetime. Then he saw it. The color looked slightly different. The details seemed sharper. And under a magnifier, his heart started racing. What he had wasn't just a penny. It was a once-in-a-generation error that shouldn't exist. This is where the mystery deepens. The 1954 D Lincoln wheat penny is common, unless it's not. The ultra-valuable versions are tied to striking anomalies so rare that even seasoned collectors miss them at first glance. We're talking about dramatic die errors, off-metal strikes, and transitional anomalies that defy mint records. Coins that were never supposed to leave the building point. One of the most talked about examples was struck on the wrong planchet. Instead of standard bronze, it was minted on a leftover experimental blank. The weight was wrong. The sound when dropped was wrong. And the color told a story no book could explain. When authenticated, the numismatic world went quiet. That single penny crossed the auction block for a price that made headlines and jaws drop. Nearly $2 million for 1 cent. This wasn't found in a vault. It wasn't locked away by a museum. It was hiding in plain sight for decades. Now here's where I want you to reset your attention, because what comes next is critical. If you want to know whether your 1954 D penny is ordinary or extraordinary, you need to know exactly what to look for. Not guesses. Not wishful thinking. Real, physical traits you can check tonight. First, check the date and mint mark. It must read 1954 with a small d directly below the date. No mint mark means it's not the one. That tiny letter is the gatekeeper. Next, look at the color. Most 1954 pennies are a dull brown or reddish brown. The ultra-valuable examples often look different. Sometimes brighter, sometimes oddly pale, sometimes with a silvery or golden hue that immediately feels wrong for a copper cent. If your gut says, "This looks strange," don't ignore that feeling, now weigh it. This is where many people stop, and where million-dollar coins get lost forever. A standard 1954 wheat penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If yours is noticeably lighter or heavier, you may be holding something special. Some of the rarest examples are off by enough that even a cheap digital scale can catch it. Listen to it. Drop it gently on a wooden table. Normal pennies make a dull thud. Off metal or wrong planchet coins ring differently. Sharper. Higher. Almost like a whisper instead of a thump. Now grab a magnifying glass or your phone camera and zoom in. Study Lincoln's portrait. Look for doubling in the letters of Liberty or the date. Look at the wheat stalks on the reverse. Are they unusually sharp? Do the lines look doubled or distorted? These are signs of doubled dies or misaligned strikes, errors that collectors pay staggering sums for. Here's another attention reset, because this part separates dreamers from discoverers. Condition matters a lot. A worn-down error is still valuable, but a high-grade example is where the words $1 million become very real. If your penny looks unusually crisp, with strong details and minimal wear, your pulse should be rising right now. One famous 1954 error penny sat untouched in a drawer for over 50 years. The owner thought it was too nice to spend, so he tossed it aside and forgot about it. When it was finally graded, experts confirmed it was one of the finest known examples of its kind. That single decision, to not spend it, changed his family's financial future. That's the emotional weight of this coin. It represents every moment you almost threw something away. Every time you said, "It's just a penny." Every drawer, jar, and box you haven't checked yet. And here's what makes this story inspirational, not just dramatic. These coins are still out there. They weren't all found. They weren't all melted. Some are sitting in old coffee cans, inherited collections, and forgotten envelopes. The hunt is not over. If you think you might have one, do not clean it. Cleaning can erase value instantly. Instead, place it in a protective holder and get it professionally evaluated. Reputable grading services exist for a reason. They authenticate, protect, and unlock the true value of coins that look ordinary to everyone else. Another reset, because this is where belief kicks in. People love to say, "Those stories never happen anymore." But they do. Quietly. Regularly. Someone always finds the next one. And the difference between the finder and everyone else is knowledge and curiosity. The 1954 wheat penny is a perfect example of how history hides in plain sight. A tiny coin from a simple year, carrying a mistake that turned copper into destiny. 1 cent that crossed the line into legend. Say the word slowly. $1.9 million. For a penny. $1 million stories don't always start with treasure chests or buried gold. Sometimes they start with the smallest coin in your hand and the decision to look twice. So tonight, open that drawer. Dump out that jar. Check those old rolls you've been meaning to go through. Because the next great discovery doesn't announce itself. It waits patiently. But a value whispered about in hushed tones among collectors, a value that crosses into $1 million territory. And the wildest part is this coin doesn't look old. It doesn't look special. It looks like every other penny you've ever spent without a second thought. This story begins in 2002, a year most people barely remember. Gas prices were low, phones still flipped open, and pennies were being tossed aside like they always had been. Billions of Lincoln cents were struck that year in Philadelphia, meaning no mint mark at all. Just Lincoln's familiar profile staring to the right, calm, ordinary, forgettable. Except a handful of these pennies were never supposed to exist the way they do. Collectors still argue about how it happened. Some say it was a quiet mistake during a late-night production run. Others believe it slipped through during a test strike, when the mint was experimenting and someone failed to shut a door at the right moment. Whatever the truth is, a tiny number of 2002 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies came out wrong in ways so subtle, so easy to miss, that most people would never notice them unless they knew exactly what to look for. Picture this. A man cleaning out his late father's garage. Dust in the air. Old jars of screws. A coffee can filled with loose change. He almost dumps it all into a Coinstar machine. Almost. Instead, he notices one penny feels just a little different. Not heavier enough to scream valuable. Just different enough to slow him down. That moment of hesitation is where fortunes are born, because some 2002 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies are tied to rare mint errors so extreme that when authenticated and graded, they step into the realm of $1 million value. That's not hype. That's what happens when rarity, demand, and a once-in-a-generation error collide. Now let me slow you down for a second, because this is where most people lose focus. Take a breath. If you've ever handled pennies, you're already closer to this treasure than you think. First, the basics. The coin must be dated 2002. No mint mark under the date. If there's a D or an S, stop right there. It's not the one. Philadelphia pennies carry no mint mark, and that's exactly what you want to see. Or rather, not see. Next, look at Lincoln himself. On some of the most valuable examples, the details of Lincoln's face show doubling so clean it looks like a shadow. His ear may appear doubled. The edge of his jaw might look slightly split. Even the lettering in Liberty can show a subtle echo, like the coin was struck twice in the same breath. This isn't damage. This isn't wear. This is a true double die, and it's one of the key signs collectors obsess over. Now flip the coin over. This is where things get eerie. On certain rare 2002 no-mint mark pennies, the Lincoln Memorial shows doubling in the columns. The steps may look thicker than normal. The words, United States of America, might appear slightly stretched or layered. It's the kind of thing you don't see unless the light hits it just right. Here's an attention reset for you. If you're thinking, I've seen weird pennies before, forget everything you think you know. Most odd-looking coins are just damaged. These are different. These errors happened at the moment of creation. That's why they matter. Now comes the part that separates pocket change from $1 million potential. Weight. A standard 2002 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams because it's copper-plated zinc. But a microscopic number of pennies were struck on the wrong planchet. Some were struck on copper planchets left over from earlier years. Those weigh closer to 3.1 grams. That tiny difference has turned ordinary-looking pennies into six-figure and seven-figure legends. Imagine placing a penny on a scale and realizing it weighs more than it should. Imagine your heart starting to race as you double-check the date. 2002, no mint mark. The numbers line up. The coin shouldn't exist like this, but it does. Collectors talk about one such coin that surfaced quietly, sold privately after authentication, and reset the ceiling for what modern pennies could be worth. The price wasn't splashed across headlines, but insiders know what happened. When a modern Lincoln cent crosses into $1 million territory, it rewrites the rules of what people bother to search for. Let me pull you back in again. If you're listening to this while sitting near a pile of change, that's not an accident. These coins weren't locked away in vaults. They were released into circulation. They bought gas. They bought coffee. They were handed back as change and forgotten. Another detail most people miss is the edge of the coin. Some rare error examples show an incomplete or unusually sharp edge, a sign of abnormal striking pressure. Run your finger around it. Does it feel different from other pennies? Trust that instinct. The smallest details matter here, and condition matters more than people realize. A rare error in poor condition can still be valuable, but a high-grade example is where the life-changing numbers appear. No heavy scratches. No corrosion. Original surfaces. Even a penny that's been sitting untouched in a drawer for 20 years can look almost brand new. Here's another reset. Forget the idea that only old coins are valuable. That mindset has cost people fortunes. Modern errors are the sleeping giants of coin collecting, and the 2002 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is one of the most whispered about examples. Think about how many pennies were minted that year. Now think about how few of these extreme errors escaped detection. That ratio is why collectors get emotional about this coin. That's why hands shake when one shows up for grading. That's why people talk about $1 million possibilities without laughing. That if you think you might have one, do not clean it. Don't polish it. Don't try to make it look better. Cleaning can destroy value instantly. Instead, place it in a protective holder and have it authenticated by a major grading service. That step alone separates real treasure from wishful thinking. That I want you to imagine calling a family member and telling them a penny you found might be worth more than their house. Imagine the disbelief. The laughter. And then the silence when the results come back confirmed. This isn't just about money. It's about the idea that something overlooked, something ignored, something everyone else passed by, could carry a secret powerful enough to change your future. That's why coin collecting isn't just a hobby. It's hope disguised as metal. So tonight, or tomorrow morning, or the next time you open a drawer and see loose change, don't rush. Slow down. Look at the dates. Look for 2002. Look for no mint mark. Check the details. Check the weight. Because history has a habit of hiding in ordinary places. It's brown, a little worn, and so boring that most people wouldn't bend down to pick it up. But what if that penny wasn't just spare change? What if it was worth $1 million? Not a lottery ticket. Not a stock. A single Lincoln cent hiding in plain sight. Let me take you back to a time when pennies actually mattered. The year is 1956. Eisenhower is in the White House, Elvis is shaking up America, and millions of wheat pennies are rolling out of the Philadelphia Mint. No mint mark. Just a simple date and 2 wheat stalks on the back. Nobody imagined that decades later, collectors would be obsessing over tiny details on these coins, or that one very specific 1956 penny could change a life forever. Here's what makes this story so unsettling. For every rare coin that's locked in a slab at an auction house, there are thousands that never made it to a collection. They slipped through fingers, fell under couch cushions, and got tossed into jars labeled spare change. Some of them are still there. Forgotten. Waiting. And now stay with me, because this is where things start to feel almost unreal. Most 1956 wheat pennies are worth a few cents, maybe $1 in nice condition. That's what everyone believes. That's what people tell themselves right before they dump a handful of old coins back into circulation. But a tiny number of 1956 no-mint mark Lincoln cents are different. They were struck under unusual conditions, with errors so subtle that you could stare at one for years and never notice. And those are the coins collectors would pay $1 million money to own. Think about the irony of that. The most valuable pennies aren't flashy. They don't shine like silver. They don't scream rarity. They whisper it. Let me tell you a story that still gives seasoned collectors chills. Years ago, a retired machinist was sorting through his late father's belongings. Nothing special. Old tools, rusted nails, a cigar box full of pennies. He almost threw the box away. Almost. Instead, he dumped them on a table and started sorting, more out of nostalgia than curiosity. One penny stopped him cold. A 1956 wheat cent. No mint mark. Slightly off-looking, like something about Lincoln's face just wasn't right. That moment changed everything. Now let's slow down for a second and reset your attention, because this part matters. If you've ever held a wheat penny, you've probably held a 1956. Millions were made. The key is knowing exactly what to look for. First, check the date. It must say 1956. That's non-negotiable. Next, look under the date. If there's no D and no S, you're holding a Philadelphia coin. No mint mark. That's the starting point. Most people stop there and think, okay, nothing special. But that's where the real collectors lean in closer, turn the coin so the light hits Lincoln's face at an angle. On certain rare examples, you'll notice doubling. Not the obvious kind that jumps out at you, but a soft, ghost-like doubling around the date, the letters in Liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust." This doubling wasn't intentional. It came from a misaligned die during production. And because quality control in the 1950s wasn't what it is today, some of these coins escaped. Here's another reset, because this next detail separates casual curiosity from life-changing discovery. Check the edges of the letters. On ultra-rare 1956 pennies, the lettering may appear thicker than normal, almost swollen. The spacing can feel off. Your eyes might tell you something is wrong before your brain catches up. Now flip the coin over. The wheat ears on the reverse should be sharp, but look closely at the words 1 cent and United States of America. On certain error strikes, you may see doubling here as well, or signs of an off-center strike that's subtle enough to be overlooked by anyone not paying attention. This is where emotion creeps in. Because once you realize how easy it is to miss these signs, you start to wonder how many people already had one. How many spent it on a cup of coffee? How many dropped it in a parking lot? How many are still sitting in drawers? Right now, take a breath, because we're not done. Some of the most valuable 1956 no-mint mark pennies aren't just doubled. They were struck on the wrong planchet. That means the blank metal disc was never meant to become a penny at all. Slight differences in weight can reveal this. A normal 1956 penny weighs about 3.11 grams. A rare wrong planchet strike can feel just a bit off in your hand, heavier or lighter, like it doesn't quite belong. Imagine the moment when someone places that coin on a scale and realizes it doesn't match. That's the moment when a hobby turns into disbelief. That's the moment when maybe turns into call an expert. Picture yourself at your kitchen table. A lamp overhead. A small pile of old pennies spread out in front of you. Your heart isn't racing yet. You're just looking. And then you see it. A 1956. No mint mark. You tilt it. The letters look thick. The date looks strange. Suddenly, the room feels quieter. Collectors have paid $1 million prices for pennies like this, not because they're flashy, but because they tell a story of mistakes, timing, and survival. A coin that wasn't supposed to exist, that slipped through cracks, and somehow lasted nearly 70 years without being destroyed. Now here's something most people never think about. Pennies from the 1950s were heavily used. They circulated hard. The odds of finding one in high condition are incredibly low. That's why condition matters so much. If your 1956 penny shows minimal wear, clear details in Lincoln's hair, strong wheat lines on the back, and no major damage, its potential skyrockets. This is where dreams get dangerous. Because once you realize that a single cent could be worth $1 million, every jar of change feels different. Every inherited box of coins becomes a mystery. Another reset. Let's talk about authentication. If you ever believe you found one of these pennies, never clean it. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Instead, have it examined by a professional grading service. They look at the strike, the metal composition, the die characteristics, and the condition. That's when the truth comes out, and when it does, lives change. I've spoken to collectors who remember exactly where they were when they got the call. Sitting in a car. Standing in a kitchen. Hearing the words that confirmed what they were afraid to hope for. That the penny was real. That it was special. That it was worth more money than they'd ever held in their hands. $1 million isn't just a number here. It's freedom. It's paying off a house. It's retirement. It's a second chance that came from the smallest object in your home. Let this sink in as we slow things down one last time. The 1956 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny doesn't announce itself. It waits. It blends in. It relies on people being too busy, too distracted, or too confident that nothing extraordinary could come from something so ordinary. and that's the lesson. Treasure doesn't always glitter. Sometimes it's brown, worn, and hiding in a drawer you haven't opened in years. A plain, brown Lincoln cent that most people would spend without a second thought. But this one is different. This is the 2014 no mint mark Lincoln penny that has collectors whispering about $1 million like it's a forbidden secret. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear has shocked seasoned collectors who've been searching pocket change for decades. The story starts quietly, the way all great discoveries do. A retired factory worker in the Midwest was sorting through a jar of pennies he'd been tossing change into since the early 2000s. No expectations. Just habit. Then he noticed something that made him stop breathing for a moment. One penny didn't look quite right. Same year as the others. Same Lincoln portrait. But something about it felt off, like the coin was trying to hide in plain sight. That feeling is important. Every major coin discovery starts with a feeling like that. If you've ever rolled pennies at your kitchen table, if you've ever dumped a jar of change just to hear the sound, you are closer to this story than you think. Here's where the mystery deepens. The 2014 Lincoln cent was struck in massive numbers. Most are worth exactly 1 cent. But a tiny number were struck under extraordinary circumstances. Wrong metal composition. Dye pressure anomalies. Microscopic design details that only appear when everything goes wrong at the mint in exactly the right way. That's where $1 million enters the conversation, and not as a joke. Let's reset for a moment. Breathe. Because this is where most people lose interest and miss the treasure. The coin in question has no mint mark, meaning it was struck in Philadelphia. That alone is normal. But collectors discovered that a handful of 2014 cents were struck on planchets that do not belong to that year. Heavier than normal. Different ring when dropped on a table. A sound sharper, cleaner, almost silver-like if you know what to listen for. Imagine testing a penny and realizing it doesn't sound like money. It sounds like history. Now imagine the realization hitting you. Your heart rate changes. Your hands feel warm. Because suddenly you're not holding pocket change. You're holding possibility. Let's talk identification, because this is where dreams become real or disappear forever. First, check the date. It must read 2014. Not 2013. Not 2015. Exactly 2014. Second, look just below the date. There must be no mint mark. No D. No S, completely blank. Third, examine the color and surface. These rare examples often look slightly off. Either darker, smoother, or oddly sharp around Lincoln's portrait. Trust your eyes. Something should feel unusual. Fourth, weigh the coin. This is critical. A standard modern Lincoln cent weighs about 2.5 grams. The rare error versions can weigh significantly more. Even a fraction of a gram matters. If you don't have a scale, get one. It's one of the cheapest tools that can unlock $1 million. Reset your focus again, because this next part matters more than anything. Never clean the coin. Never polish it. Never try to make it shiny. Cleaning can destroy value instantly. A coin worth life-changing money can become a penny again in seconds. Collectors who've seen these coins describe a strange emotional moment when they realize what they have. Disbelief first. Then fear. Then hope. Because suddenly every old jar, every forgotten drawer, every childhood piggy bank feels like a treasure chest waiting to be opened. And here's the part nobody talks about. The reason these coins stay hidden is because they look ordinary. They don't scream rare. They whisper it. That's why people spend them. That's why cashiers give them back as change. That's why one could have passed through your hands last week without you knowing. Think about how many pennies you've ignored in your life. Thousands. Tens of thousands. Now imagine one of them quietly carrying a value of over $1 million. This coin is not valuable because it's old. It's valuable because it should not exist the way it does. Mint errors are accidents, and accidents are rare. When the wrong metal meets the wrong die at the wrong moment, history happens. Auction houses have seen collectors freeze when these pieces appear. Phones come out. Experts lean in closer. Bids climb fast. Because when verified, a penny like this doesn't just sell. It creates headlines. It becomes legend, and legends don't announce themselves. They wait. If you've ever felt like luck never finds you, this is your reminder that sometimes luck is already sitting in your house, waiting for you to look closer. Go check your change jar. Check your desk drawer. Check the cup holder in your car. Check that old box you haven't opened in years. Slow down. Look carefully. Trust your instincts. I want you to stay with me, because this story is not about ancient treasure or locked vaults. It is about a 1957 D mint mark Lincoln wheat penny, and the shocking truth that one of these coins has already rewritten someone's future. Most people think valuable coins have to look special. Shiny. Perfect. Museum-worthy. That belief has caused millions of Americans to unknowingly spend away their chances at wealth. In the late 1950s, the U.S. Mint was pushing out pennies at record speed. America was booming, pockets were jingling, and pennies were treated like dust. But something went wrong in Denver in 1957. Not loud. Not obvious. Quiet mistakes that slipped through the system, unnoticed, and released into circulation. Picture a mint worker dropping a handful of freshly struck cents into a bin, unaware that one of them would someday be whispered about in auction rooms. That penny traveled through grocery stores, gas stations, jukebox counters, and maybe even a child's piggy bank. It survived recessions, wars, and generations of spring cleanings. And all that time, its value kept growing. Now here's where your attention matters. The 1957 D wheat penny looks simple. Abraham Lincoln on the front. 2 wheat stalks on the back. The date 1957. And just below it, a tiny D mint mark. That D means Denver. Most people stop there and toss it aside. That's the mistake. What makes this penny special isn't just the year or the mint. It's the condition and the hidden flaws that most eyes miss. Some of these coins were struck on the wrong planchets. Others show double die features so subtle they vanish unless you know where to look. Some were struck with incredible sharpness at a time when quality control was slipping. Hold the coin under a light and tilt it slowly. Look at Lincoln's date. Is it crisp, bold, and perfectly shaped? Check the word Liberty. On rare examples, the letters appear slightly doubled or unusually strong. Now move to the mint mark. On a genuine high-value piece, the D is clean, well-defined, and properly positioned. Any strange spacing, tilting, or weakness could mean something extraordinary. Flip the coin over. The wheat ears should be sharply defined, not mushy. Look closely at the lines running through the stalks. Strong detail here separates common pocket change from auction-level coins. The rim should be even, without flattening, and the surfaces should show minimal wear. Even small differences in preservation can mean the gap between a few dollars and $1 million. Here's the emotional truth most collectors don't talk about. These coins reward patience, not luck. Somewhere, someone once ignored a voice that said, "This looks interesting." Someone else listened. That decision changed everything. There have been collectors who nearly gave up the hobby, convinced all the good finds were gone. Then one quiet afternoon, sorting through inherited change or an old coffee can, they found it. A brown penny that didn't scream value. It whispered it. The 1957 D wheat penny represents hope. It proves history still hides in everyday places. It proves that $1 million moments don't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes they arrive wrapped in copper and silence. And here's your attention reset, because this part matters more than anything. You do not need fancy equipment to begin. A magnifying glass. Good lighting. Patience. Start with every wheat penny dated 1957. Separate the Denver mint marks. Inspect them one by one. Don't rush. Rushing is how treasures slip away. No one knows. That mystery is what keeps collectors awake at night. Pennies are lost every year, melted, discarded, forgotten. But some survive, tucked into drawers, jars, and envelopes that haven't been opened in decades. If you've ever inherited coins, if you've ever saved old change, if you've ever told yourself you'll look through it someday, this is that day. Because someone, somewhere, already missed their chance. You don't have to. A penny doesn't look like power. It doesn't feel like freedom. But this one can represent both. It can represent paying off a house, retiring early, helping family, or finally breathing without financial pressure. The world is loud. Value often hides in quiet places. And sometimes, the smallest coin carries the biggest story.